All right. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Maggie Rose. She's like a young conservative. I had been talking to her just on YouTube comments recently, and I was sort of curious to talk with her about some more of her ideas and her experience. She seemed like an interesting person. Like we both kind of have some, I guess, beef, if you will, with like the same people, interestingly enough. So I guess we could talk about that. So could you first off just talk a little bit about yourself and I guess, where you're at and I guess your experience on college campuses and things like
Sure.
that?
Well, I went to high school in Massachusetts, which is a very liberal place during the 2016 election. And it wasn't a welcoming place being there as a Trump supporter because the teachers were very hostile. The people were very hostile. So through that, I sort of became much more solidified in my beliefs than if I was just at a normal, just like a medium area place. So I would think I'm pretty, not far right, but I'm pretty anchored in my political beliefs and my social beliefs. Honestly, maybe because I was attacked so much for it, it makes you buckle down. And I'm a political science major. And the reason that I've sort of got a little bit of trouble in the conservative community for being a little bit anti Charlie Kirk, and not really anti Candace Owens as much because she's pretty new, but anti Charlie Kirk. It's not. Well, I mean, some people don't care, but it can be a problem a little bit.
So one thing I'm curious about is like when you say that it solidified your opinions, what do you mean by that? Do you mean like you were more likely to defend Trump even when he did things that were kind of
No, I would say that I was more likely to talk about things even if I didn't want to talk about them. So, for instance, I was in my AP US history class one day, and it was toward when they were still in the primary process. And whatever Trump had said that day, maybe I didn't really care. I didn't really want to talk about it. But because he was getting attacked, I was talking about it. And because that happens, you start to research more so your arguments are better. So although I had these preliminary beliefs, the way that I was dealt with in high school made me solidify them so much more than if I would have before.
Okay. So you were getting into a lot of debates because a lot of your fellow classmates did not like Trump, and so you were defending Trump because you were.
And the teachers, really. I mean, the classmates, some of them were, but a lot of them just didn't care. But my history teachers and my sociology teachers and my English teachers, I mean, I had an English teacher who was an AP English teacher saying, if you wear a Bernie Sanders shirt, you get extra credit.
Really, no way.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, that's true. And so I was like, well, is it like any political shirt? No, just Bernie Sanders. So it's like, how do you not get into a problem there? I'm like, I matter as much as they do.
Were you old enough to vote?
No, so it was really frustrating.
So it was just, it seems kind of interesting that they would say you get extra credit for wearing a shirt. Did you wear a Bernie shirt just to get extra credit?
No, but other people were doing stuff here, and it was so frustrating.
Even if I didn't agree, I would have done it. But yeah, that seems very silly.
Yeah.
So what were there any like arguments that you felt made sense against Trump, or was it a lot of stuff that you thought it didn't really make sense?
Well, in high school, I have a friend who's very much a neocon. She's really like in the model of John McCain. And the only argument, I didn't agree with it, but I could understand how it could happen, where he was saying he's like too much on the other side. He's too untested. So this could backfire on us. So I understood his argument a little bit. This is someone who's very much John McCain, Mitt Romney. So I understood his fear about it. I understood that he in his mind thought we could be giving away an election to this. I didn't believe that, but that argument I understood. And the liberal arguments that maybe he was unqualified, I understood a little bit. But because it's never just he's unqualified, it's all the other things. So they sort of lost their merit to me a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of things about Trump that make him totally different from most politicians. I mean, the way he talks, the level of uncertainty about his finances. There's just like limit, like yeah, he has no actual political experience. So yeah, he's definitely different. But some of those things have sort of upsides, I guess, for the electorate. I mean, obviously there were people that were drawn to the fact that he was not as experienced, and I think one of the things that I kind of feel like is that I think as time goes on, more experience is actually worse because more experience gives you more room for being attacked.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that hurt Hillary in 2008 and in 2016. She had
Yeah.
more experience than Obama. That hurt her because she had to actually vote on Iraq and these other things.
And I heard something like, I'd rather no experience than bad experience. And I think that mattered a lot to people. It mattered to me.
I think it matters to the party too.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you're, I mean, Trump basically kind of got away with having no experience, but people regarded him like they took his business acumen as experience.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, on the subject of Trump, like how would you say you felt he's been so far? Like, are you happy?
Yeah, I'm very, very happy. I'm happier than I thought I was. I didn't think things would happen this fast. Because with Congress and the Senate, it's like nothing ever changes. So
like, what are the things you're happy about that he's done?
Well, I'm happy about the almost denuclearization of North Korea, and the fact that
you credit for that.
Well, yeah, because he's sort of involved.
Okay, well, I think most of who's involved is the South Korean and North Korean, especially the South Korean.
But how did we go from a position of Kim Jong-un testing ballistic missiles, 12 months ago, to this position? Those two people didn't change. So that I'm also very happy about. I mean, I'm very much like an American. I love the culture here. So I had a real problem with what Obama did to certain aspects of the economy. Like, I can understand the clean air things and everything, but my issue was when he took on the coal industry, for instance, in West Virginia and areas. There was nothing else put in. There was no large amounts of training. There was no vocational thing. So when you strip out the main source of an economy, the area is destitute. I mean, people in West Virginia couldn't afford a $240 a month mortgage. So I'm very happy that he's put that back in. I would say,
would you say that you would support a retraining program for these people who live in like the coal country, where if we're going to transition to a less like carbon intensive economy, like you think retraining them would be a good idea?
I think that you can't retrain large amounts of adults. What I would support is having a serious amount of new vocational training for the younger generation. I would support that. I would support having people, maybe even government people, as much as I don't love too much government, going in and creating an infrastructure to train people on sustainable energy. I would support that.
Because, I mean, when you first were talking about retraining, that was basically what Obama and Hillary wanted to do, but Congress stopped.
But there's no trust with Hillary and Clinton, though. With Hillary and Obama, though, this is always the problem. When she made that, I'm going to put a lot of coal miners out of business comment.
Sure. Which was
that's a problem. You can't rebuild certain things. So although it might be the same idea or similar idea, if you have nobody who the industry trusts, it's not going to go anywhere anyway.
So they trust Trump. So if he did it, it would be better. Is that what you're saying?
They trust Trump to explore other options to benefit their economy. I mean, this is West Virginia. This is Bill Clinton territory. This is Obama. I think they voted for Obama. I think we have to look at we have to look at what went so wrong that they made such a different change. It's
always been like a very Dixiecrat type of territory. I mean, they're not like Massachusetts Democrats.
Right, but then what happened in Pennsylvania, though? Like, why was
Pennsylvania? I mean, I think that there was some kind of disconnect with Hillary's campaign focus. They just didn't believe that she was going to favor them. I mean, the other thing too we have to keep in mind is there's voter suppression that happened in a lot of these places. A lot of them had Republican legislators and governors, and then they passed these voter suppression laws, like in Pennsylvania, they did that. In Wisconsin, they did that. In Michigan, they did that.
But do you see how when that's the position of the liberal side, it dehumanizes what happened? This is the anger with so many conservatives, is there is always an effort to destroy our win. There's always an effort.
I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, you can say...
I understand that, but there's never a...
Imagine someone who's in Wisconsin and you're trying to vote and you get denied. Like, that's dehumanizing, And that happened. That happened, and they do it for a reason.
Wisconsin,
same with North Carolina. They passed all these laws, and in North Carolina, it was so it got struck down by the Supreme Court and they said that what they were doing was surgically targeting African American communities so they could disenfranchise them.
But that's always the argument. Again, it's never that anyone just voted for him. Do you notice that? It's never that anybody went to the polls and said, I, as a woman, am going to click the Trump ballot. It's never that. It's always some other story. I mean, the DNC's suing Russia. I mean, I understand suing whatever they have to do, but you're going to tell me that's a good idea? Suing Russia?
I'd be interested to read the emails. But on the point of Trump, like, we have to recognize that he got less votes than Hillary Clinton. Okay,
yeah, we're a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy.
Yeah, but if we're going to talk about, like, there's so many people, the majority of the country did not vote for him.
And the majority of the country
doesn't like him president.
Well, yeah, but here's the problem with that. You don't get to have a country in which people in California and New York decide everything. This is why we have a constitutional republic. There is such a level of elitism in California and New York. I'm from New York. I know New York very well. I'm born and raised in New York. I went to private school in New York. There is such a level of elitism amongst these two states that even then they knew these two states cannot decide everything. You know what? I'm sorry that the popular vote went to her. That's how it works. And when the Democrats start saying things like we're gonna examine this, we might talk about maybe changing this. Do you see why this drives Republicans out in droves? Why it says, let's just make sure we vote so they don't unravel the Constitution. You can't change things. I'm sorry Democrats are very happy with how this happened, but it's not. I think France is a direct vote. It's not France. We're in America. It's a system that works very well. And now look, the Bush time, I will admit, is shady. I will admit Bush was shady.
Yeah.
I will admit that.
I'm not contesting the election in any way, but I'm just telling you, like, he won very narrowly. I mean, he won by like 50,000 votes. Sure. And then he's become even less popular. So to say that there's a ton of people who wanted him to be like elected, more like a majority, it's just not the case.
Well, the majority of Americans numerically do not. But here's the thing. Again, none of your polls were right last time. None of the polls, except Yahoo. Oddly enough, except Yahoo.
Actually said. So first, and this is something that people misconstrue a lot. So did the polls say? So a lot of people they talk about these predictions that were made. Oh, she had a 99% chance of winning. She had a 60% chance of winning. So the people who said 99%, they were off. But let's take like 538. So 538 said that she had about a 60% chance of winning. I mean, that's not great. 40% happens a lot. And there was a lot of things that were happening leading up to the election that made her do these really, really, really stupid and bad type of.
That shows what kind of president she'd be.
But hold on. So let me just talk about this real quick. So one of the things she did was they like a month before, they were seeing all these outcomes where she was going to win but not win the popular vote, and so they got worried about losing the popular vote. So then they started spending money in places that were their strongholds to get people to come out more, instead of spending money in places where she was actually gonna win the election. So that was one thing that caused a problem, right? And so the other thing too is no one said that she was 100% certain to win.
No, but that was what the feeling was. You're going to tell me most people did not think he was going to win. So when you cultivate that level of certainty, that level of certainty amongst people, it makes voters complacent, which is what happened.
Sure, but that doesn't mean that they're right? So just because and another thing to keep in mind too is like every poll has a margin of error. Okay, so if you took most of the polls, and especially most people looked at national polls. Well, if you saw if a national poll said that Hillary Clinton was going to win by 2 percentage points, that poll was right because she did. She won the popular vote, but that didn't matter for the Electoral College.
But this is still the Democrats' problem. You guys still do this. You still devaluate what happened.
It was factual. I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that the polls said this, and there's a margin of error and everything. But then why, when you look at the county map that shows every single county in America, is most of it red? Why is it when you look at the breakdown?
Have a lot of like a lot of those counties you're looking at. There's not a lot of people. It's a lot of
county, but the whole county map is red. You cannot discredit just because there's not a lot of people in certain areas that the entire county map is red. And the fact that she made those horrible mistakes at her campaign, just are indicative of what a terrible president she would have been. How do you rest on your laurels when you have the opportunity to lead to be the leader of the free world? That's disgusting that she did that. You know, it's like Mitt Romney. He disappeared for like 6 weeks at the end. Nobody knew where he went. Paul Ryan's out there with a sign, like trying to like rally people. It was disgusting. That was a terrible campaign. That was a terrible campaign. John McCain's campaign was terrible.
I think a lot of it was like there were so many things that happened that were unpredictable, like the email hack, like all the fake news, all of the craziness in social media. But yeah, I think she was around.
I would agree with that, but with the email hack, that wasn't unexpected. She committed a very big problem. She did something really awful. The fake news is unexpected. Her falling down at the 9/11 memorial was unexpected. Yeah. Having a private email server in your basement, which I think we all know was wrong, is not unexpected. It's just criminal.
The private email server was a huge problem, and it was something that in another year would have tanked her. But because she was so putting everyone out, and Bernie Sanders explicitly didn't attack her on it.
Yeah, that's true.
And
those are the super targets.
If we're talking about polls, the other thing we got to talk about is, I mean, again, 538 people who their whole thing is about polling. They showed that after Comey came out with the second letter, the effect it had on her polling was substantial. Yeah. Substantial. So all these things came together.
It's a huge problem. And when you dissect a campaign in hindsight, you can isolate the problems. But aside from the fake news, everything that hit her was directly her fault. And you have an email server. You have the fact that Comey had to do the look. I do not like Comey. But the fact that he had to do that was her fault. The fact that he was in a situation where she had this era. The fact that she fell down at a 9/11 thing and then was really shady about it. The fact that she said, what does it matter at the Benghazi hearings? The fact that she did all of these things. The fact that she gave away uranium. Like, these are issues. This didn't happen to her. It's like Condoleezza Rice says, flying's not like an accomplishment. This didn't happen to her. She made terrible choices continuously throughout 30 years.
Yeah. I'm not going to defend her because that's a whole nother thing that would take us into a tangent that I think is unnecessary. I think the uranium stuff is like some Breitbart conspiracy theories, but
then why it's but this is also the issue.
Let's discuss immigration. How about that? Okay. So, one thing that I'm curious about, do you like the way that he sort of talked about immigration, the way Trump has, and the policies he's trying to put forward?
My father's an immigrant. He's a legal immigrant, and I am not unaware of the fact that there's large amounts of abuse that goes on in the system. When you have a situation where we spent $618 billion on housing and everything of illegal immigrants and everything. I don't care what he says. I don't care, because at some point it has to stop. At some point you have to say American citizen first, everyone else second. At some point there has to be a cutoff. They called Obama the deporter in chief. They said all of those things about him, and yet he's not a racist, and yet he's not any of these things. So I don't.
He gets a lot of flack for that.
Yeah, but not at this level. Not at this level.
Well, Trump has a level of rhetoric on top of.
Well, I think it's helpful. I think it's like
his ICE administration is so outside of the norm for any American.
Yeah, but here's the problem, though. When you have a situation where for 8 years the norm was to pretty much, aside from what Obama wanted done, do nothing. There's a course correction. It's like with the stock market. When you rise and rise and rise, there's a flat line. This is what the ICE is doing.
Republicans in Congress were unwilling to come to the table and do a comprehensive view.
That was disgusting. You're right. That was disgusting. That they did not come to the table.
They should have done.
That was disgusting.
And they tried to do something under Bush. I mean, people know that.
And you know why? Because they want to run on the issue. And this is a serious problem I have with Republicans. They want to run on an immigration issue, but then do nothing. And then say, oh, it's the bad Democrats.
Let me ask you a specific policy. How do you feel about people who immigrate here legally bringing over their close relatives and family, like children?
Chain migration?
I'm sorry, chain migration? I mean, that's to me a made-up term. To me, bringing your family, that's like.
Well, legal. Are these people vetted?
Of course they are. Everyone in this country is vetted if they come in.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody should be coming in here without doing the extensive amounts of paperwork it has to do, like in any other country.
I mean, to be fair, there are definitely some. So, the the San Bernardino shooter. His wife came from like Pakistan or something, but he married her. He was an American citizen, and she radicalized him. Stuff like that is very hard to find, but we have the highest level of vetting in the world for immigrants, and so I think anyone who passes our immigration screening.
If you do it legally, welcome. Like if you do it, my father did it legally. If you do it illegally, welcome, come and join. But
So you think ending migration is like you would be against that? You'd be against
no, because again, we're having a seismic demographic shift in this country, in which all this will happen. And everyone just sort of laughs at that. But I mean, look at what's happening in England. Look what's happening in Germany. Look what's happening in these things.
Wait, hold. What do you think is happening in England?
You have complete grooming gangs. You have the fact that right leaders were just arrested and deported, and then some were barred from coming into the country.
Who are you talking about when you say
right? You have Martin Sellner and Brittany Pettibone and Lauren Southern and Tommy Robinson, who's his own citizen.
You know why they were deported?
Yes, because they're anti-Islamic.
Because they lied to the police. Like she literally lied to the police and bragged about it on social media. They gave them a fake phone number. They asked, "Who are you? Why are you here? What's your number?"
Well, I think that that's not
coming here. We would kick them out, and you wouldn't say anything about it.
Okay. Even if that's true, all of the other people that are barred from going to the UK, the fact that Tommy Robinson has, I think, been in court 5 times because he dared to speak out against Islamization. When the people within their own countries, when the French people or the German people or the American people, and when I say American, I mean legal Americans, not any ethnicity, but legal Americans, become the minority in their country, doesn't go well.
So,
I don't. This is a problem.
About this, like, what is the demographic problem that you? So, like, what's the number? Because, like, you're talking about like white.
Well, no, I'm talking about the fact that people who came in here legally, people from countries that actually filed the paperwork. By 2040, people who were here legally, Americans would have been the minority. I don't think that's the case anymore because of ICE doing what they're doing. When that happens, it doesn't go well, and I don't understand why no one's allowed to talk about it.
White Americans.
Yeah, I don't understand why you can't talk about that. Why that's bad. Like, this is a problem I get into with Charlie Kirk, and I get attacked a lot on this for online by his people. I don't understand why conservatives have to be perpetually shamed. Not saying you're doing it at all, but I don't understand why we must be perpetually shamed for everything. It's like I don't get what we did. That was so bad. What did we do that was so bad?
Well, I'll say one thing. When you start talking about demographic arguments, the cascading results of that are, I think, problematic because now you're talking about like ethno-nationalism. You're no longer judging people based upon their ideas. You're judging people based upon their race.
But that's what Democrats do.
Deterministic characteristics about it.
That's all you guys do. Everything is race. Okay, for instance, when I was in high school, I was walking into my high school and I had a pollster come up to me in Massachusetts. She said, "You're voting for Hillary, right?" Do you not see the problem with this? The Democratic Party is unbelievably racist, the most racist party in the universe. You attack the NRA, who aren't people against the KKK. You go up to people and say, "You're this ethnicity or you're a girl, so you're voting Hillary." All you do is identity politics, but because Republicans dare to mention something about white people, we're evil.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the Republicans did this thing called the Southern Strategy. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
And I know that Lee Atwater started it, and I understand that. But we're not talking about this. We're talking
right now the Southern Strategy, and it worked. I mean, to be fair, the Southern Strategy has worked, and they had.
Why is it that no one's allowed to say anything now? That everyone has to be.
So let's just handle the demographic question, right? So like what you're saying is there's some percentage. Like what would you say is a percentage that we need to have in this country for it to be okay?
No, stop it. I'm not saying that there's a percentage of white people. I'm saying that when people in their own country become the minority, when there's abundance of doing it, and you do it to bus-in voters. You think we don't know that, but you do it to bus-in voters. When you do that, there's a problem. And you know what else I find really interesting? In France and Germany and England, not really in Hungary or the Ukraine things, no news about these gang rapes gets out. England has a knife crime problem. They're killing people with machetes, okay? And the ethnic English are out. And I don't understand why that's bad to say. They're killing people with machetes. And we're not allowed to say anything about the fact that maybe you don't displace the own people in your country to do it. China doesn't do this. China does not displace its own people. It does not import vast amounts of immigrants.
So one of the things about I think that your dad was an immigrant, right?
Yeah,
So do you think that our country is better off because your dad came here and that you live here?
yeah, because he came
So
here legally.
one of the problems that's going to happen in these places like Japan and China, where they don't have like any immigration, is at some point they're going to have a very old population and not a lot of young people, and it's going to
Then
cost
why? No, hold on a second. Then why did China have to stop people from having babies?
because they
That's
had
not
too many people and not enough wealth.
okay. Yeah, I understand that, but that whole argument is flawed because if you have a situation where you have to impose one child, I think it's two-child policy now. That's completely ridiculous. These countries have humongous economies. The military is rampant. Now, do I agree with what's happening with the presidential elections in China, where he's in for life? No, I think that's horrible. But these countries are thriving. Let's not pretend these countries aren't thriving like
Has
this.
been in a they called the 2000s a lost decade. Like they have been in a deflationary issue for a long time.
Then why are
And
they
the
recovering?
demographics are really bad. They're going to have a lot of old people and a lot of very depressed young people who are going to have to
That's
take.
awful.
Have
The
to,
answer here is not to look for a group of people and put them in their country. Doesn't make any sense. Which country are you going to go to? You're going to go to Sweden or Norway or like where? Where do you go and find a bunch of people to put in? Doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. You can't
so
just bust
what I think
people.
our immigration policy should be, we should take in, so anyone that goes to this country and they go to a university, they get a degree, we should allow them to stay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I would
and
agree with that. If you go
anyone
to a country, we educate you. We should benefit from it.
anyone who has like a high level of skill, like so someone who has like a master's, bachelor's, PhD,
Yeah, yeah.
can become if they want, and also any company should be allowed to basically get workers to come over temporarily, and for any roles they can't fill. That's what I would say.
With guest worker visas, yeah, sure. I have no problem with that.
I mean, and that's comprehensive immigration reform, which
Yeah, and Republicans won't pass it. They won't pass it because they want to run on it in whatever year is there. They wanted to run on it in 2004. They wanted to run on it. They want to run on it again. Like we blame the obstructionist Democrats, but they were at the table. They were talking. They would, and Republicans wouldn't make a deal. And it's disgusting.
so one thing to keep in mind though is like if so we both agree like what types of people we should allow here. People that want to work, people that have really high skills, people that are
Even people who from other countries can prove that they have and not this isn't really child migration, but people who can prove they have some ability, and if they don't have an exceptional ability, people who can prove they have an infrastructure to come to on some level. But again, you have to have some ability. You can't just be a relative. But if you have a little bit of an ability and you have an infrastructure to come to, I would say that's okay as well.
yeah, I think what we just agreed upon, it would be a far larger amount of immigration than we have currently. If we had that type of an immigration
But if
policy,
we had that type of immigration, we wouldn't have as many immigration problems. So it would equal out.
because we would allow in people
We
that,
wouldn't have,
you
yeah,
know, yes,
we
and I
wouldn't
think
we wouldn't have the other problems as much. So it would equal.
yeah, well, we wouldn't have an illegal immigration policy because a lot of people would come in and leave. I mean, that's the problem with building
Yeah.
a wall and doing this other stuff is well,
The wall.
no, hold on. So what they found is that the more we militarize the border, the more people didn't go back. Okay, so when we militarized the border in the 80s, a bunch of people they crossed the border in the like 90s and 2000s after NAFTA, and then they just never went back because they knew it was going to be hard for them to get out. So we made it easy for people.
Right, I understand that, but I don't understand why we have virtual borders or we have crumbling borders. It makes no sense. A sovereignty of a country is defined by the lines in the earth. That's how it works. So why can we not have a
Sovereignty?
what?
You think the lines in the sand define our sovereignty?
I'm saying that if you don't have these walls, if you don't have some sort of border, there's nothing to stop people except their own goodwill. In Hungary, and Hungary is a very extreme example, but they built a fence. Illegal immigration went down. I don't understand why this is a complicated.
Going back to Europe, which had a gigantic influx of refugees
Yeah, but it worked.
World War.
Barriers work, but barriers work.
We're
You know,
right now in the United States.
people and saying just come in, do the right thing does not work. It doesn't work. Why can't we have something? And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe it does create a culture of fear. What if we had a border and then we had a government agency that was designated to help improve immigrant relationships? I would be for that. I would be for some sort of thing that did community outreach in which you explain to people that this is not some sort of signal that we hate you. I would be for that. you have to have lines. You have to have a border. You have to have some sort of rule.
Let me say one thing. I think that what makes us a sovereign country is that we have a government which we elect, which has our constitution, which we can amend, that creates laws for us. It governs us. Nothing else does. So
Yes, but also having distinct
so if
borders
people
makes
came
us a sovereign country.
to another country, if a million Chinese people came into the country, we would still have a constitution and we would still be able to amend it to change the rules in ways that benefit us. That the president, executive, the judiciary, that's the sovereign.
Right. I understand that. But also having a clear distinction of what our country is, where it ends, where you can come in, also shows the sovereignty of a country. Look, there's some countries that have, you can go throughout all of them with like a pass. That's their thing. Here, you need to have documentation. You need to have a border. I don't understand why that's so bad.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I just think that I don't think militarizing the border is necessarily going to do exactly what you want. I think it's actually doing what you don't want. It's getting people to come here illegally and stay here because they're afraid of going back.
Then why are boarding crossings down?
They're down because our economy was bad and their economy was better. That's why.
Okay. Well, not the fact that there's actually consequences to if you do something wrong. It's the economy. It's not the fact that people are maybe thinking twice about coming into the country.
Why do you think people from South America come here? They come here because we have a better economy.
Right, I understand that. But you also have to say, maybe people don't come into a country where they know that that this country is dealing with the immigration problems, where you're saying, no more, we need a break, we need to figure this out, we need to get rid of them. We have a huge backlog of immigration cases. That's disgusting. It's disgusting that we have a huge backlog of immigration cases, that we have judges that are prosecutors and everything that's so overwhelmed. I'd like a situation where we could deal with that entire backlog, where we could make it work, where we could get people where they need to be, where we could set people up and then deal with it. It's a disservice to the people that are already here, where you have like 10,000 cases or something in certain areas no one can touch because there's no time. That's ridiculous. Why can't we address that?
Yeah. So one real quick, do you think that the DACA recipients should be allowed to have citizenship in the United States?
I think that there's definitely more room for it. My issue with DACA is because we've invested money in all of these people. We've Americanized them. We've created a situation where they've gone to the public schools, or some case other schools, even especially charter schools. So my problem with this is, what do we do? It's like a loss. Like we're taking a loss economy-wise because we've educated all these people. What is it? Like 11 million people?
11 million is the total illegal immigrant population.
Oh, okay. What is it? What is it? 1,800,000?
I think it's in the hundreds of thousands. The DACA recipients.
So for me, I think this would have been a moment where, and I understand why Trump is using it as a bargaining chip. This could have been something that could have been collaborated on. I don't want to have a situation where we give away these people, we push these people out who we spend probably like $10 million educating. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want any new people in DACA. But these 800,000 people, what are we going to do? We're going to get rid of them, kick them out, and take the economic loss? I would have liked a deal on that. I would have liked Schumer to not shut the government down over it, and I would have liked a deal on. I really don't like government shutdowns because it makes us look stupid to the rest of the world, and I think you can agree on that. It makes us look like we can't handle our own crap.
I think that I don't like the government shutdowns. I think that they can be necessary if we're going to get some kind of end that's good. I think that the negotiations broke down over immigration because Trump started putting in this actually very anti-immigration stuff in the negotiations, like ending chain migration, which is just family reunification. And they wanted to do, I think
a lot of other people come along on chain migration. When they shut
they wanted to raise that kind of thing, which would half the number of green cards that we have. I think that's totally the wrong way to go. I don't think we should be halving our number of immigrants that we're taking in.
Well, I mean, I would argue with that. But when I think it was Mitch McConnell shut down the government a couple of years ago, I was disgusted. It's disgusting. You can't, to me, it's like you have one job, you have one job. You go to the Senate or you go to the Congress and you do your job. And I don't understand why you need to shut the government down to do this. What kind of lazy person are you in which you shut the government down because you can't get your crap together? And that's why I think so many Republicans are really sick of the establishment people, and why so many Democrats are really sick of the establishment people, And you're shutting the government down. I mean, you have one thing. Like, you can't shut down some place you work at because you couldn't reach an agreement. I can't do that. Why can they do that?
Unless you're a teacher.
Well, yeah, but like, you can't shut down a restaurant because you couldn't make an agreement. I can't do it. Why do they get to do it?
Yeah, I definitely kind of agree with that. Okay, so why don't we talk about now, like, I guess your feelings on Milo Yiannopoulos and like the alt-right, because if we could talk about those things,
I think Milo Yiannopoulos is very sloppy and very rude.
very sloppy.
No, he's very rude. He's very rude.
Oh yeah.
I have an issue. You're talking about the Berkeley thing, right?
Well, I think,
thing.
yeah, just him in general, or just his trolling.
Here's my problem. When you have a situation where a publicly funded institution is students are burning their own campus, I think that someone needs to look into that. My problem with certain people in the alt-right is the level of sloppiness and the level of rudeness. They're just being provocative to be provocative at this point.
Yeah.
You know, when you have serious infringement of conservative speech on college campus, when you have a situation where conservatives are I have had my grade docked several times for arguing that Nixon did a good thing with opening China in AP US history. When you have that happening, and
really,
yeah, oh yeah,
I find all of these claims to be very interesting because it might have been more than just they disagreed with you liking.
No, I'd
have to see it for me to like feel valid and
got kicked out of an assembly because someone came in and started talking about how great Black Lives Matter was. And I said to her, why are you here? This is a public school. Why are you here? And I was told I didn't understand anything and to get out. So when you have a situation where conservative students are we're really beaten down. And I know liberals like to laugh at this. Everyone likes to laugh at this.
That's an interesting story. So someone came in, they were talking about Black Lives Matter, and you disagreed. And
I was kicked out.
You told them.
I didn't even disagree. I said to her, why are you here? You're in a public school. Why are you here?
Advocate for Black Lives Matter, which is a movement.
Yes, but it's a public school. I think there's a serious lack of understanding that you cannot push political ideologies in a school. You can't push religious ideologies in a school. Look, I don't want anyone preaching to kids, pushing an ideology that's liberal or pushing an ideology that's Democrat.
I don't know if that's the case, though. I think that you're allowed
We had a mandatory assembly of every student in both grades. We had a mandatory assembly. You're going to tell me that we weren't supposed to sit there and agree with her? That's ridiculous. We were supposed to sit there.
Mandatory assembly for Black Lives Matter?
Yes. We had a mandatory assembly for Black Lives Matter. You're going to tell me we were not supposed to sit there and listen to her and then go vote Democrat?
Like an answer to this, or was it just you took in what they said?
I said to her, why are you here? And the science teacher kicked me out and said, you don't understand what you're talking about. And she kicked me out.
I definitely don't agree with you being kicked out, but I think that like there's nothing wrong with them speaking it on campus.
Yes. See, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Democrats would like everybody's child to be subjected to your point of view 24/7. Can you imagine if Ted Cruz came to talk?
Yeah, he doesn't.
No, Marco Rubio in a school in Massachusetts. Let me tell you what would have happened. There would have been riots. It would never.
Probably. He would have faced some very tough questions, just like at that town hall he did. That town hall after the shooting.
Yeah, but why? But what? That was not him coming into a school. That was something else.
But hold on, keep in mind, like Republicans run all of the government, and they have like Fox News. So like this.
Are you kidding me? We run the government. Have you been outside recently? Let me tell you something. I was going to go.
Who's the Speaker of the House? Paul Ryan. He's a Republican.
And he's a failure. Most of them are
Republican. Who's the Senate Majority Leader? Mitch McConnell. He's a Republican.
And he's failing. I'm saying we don't run the country though. We run government. There's a very big difference. Let me explain this. I'm going to explain this.
How that works?
I'm trying to explain. We run the government. We make executive decisions. I was going to go to film school. I got accepted to film school in New York. I went in, and there were 10 kids talking about how terrible effing Trump is. A teacher talking about how we can make a documentary about how terrible Trump is. We are not allowed to have an opinion about anything. We are marginalized and dismissed in every college and every school in this country. We're treated like garbage.
You're a victim.
No. We are victims. We are victims. Okay, well, it's funny. It's funny when you have
You're
Antifa terrorism.
not a victim. You have an unpopular
Wow.
opinion. That's not victimhood. You know?
We have an unpopular opinion because we're not allowed to think anything. We have an unpopular opinion.
But if
No, you can't, though. You can't think anything because when you have teachers docking grades,
you know, like that's not, you're not.
when you have teachers docking grades, when you have teachers calling out kids for being Nazis or being for
Back to the film school example. So you didn't like that the other students were anti.
No, I didn't like that the teachers were. I didn't like that we had to make movies about it.
So you did.
No, I didn't make movies. I pulled out.
Forced to make against Trump. No,
that's what it was. Make political examples about how awful Trump is. Do all these things. It's ridiculous. You don't get
the assignment you were given.
Yeah, that was what the assignment was when I was there. You don't get it. Nobody gets it unless you're a conservative. How terrible this is.
Nobody gets the documentation of this. I would love to see it.
No, I was just there. I just heard it, and this is what.
Okay. So it's
right. So now I'm a liar, right? Because I'm a conservative.
No, I'm not saying you're a liar, but if someone wrote down on a piece of paper, right, you must for this assignment make a film that is against Trump. That's a little bit different than some teacher saying whatever.
So when teachers put up let me ask you a question. Do you think it's appropriate for I think it was middle school, to have the entire front mezzanine, like the glass facing out, have anti-NRA signs? You think that's appropriate?
No.
That's not what I'm talking about. A school in Philadelphia had like the entire.
When was this?
Just recently, I just saw it. There was a school in Philadelphia that had.
There was this thing called the March for Our Lives.
That's not what I'm talking about. No, that's not what I'm talking about, though. I understand. That's not what I'm talking about. You had an entire front thing with kids' signs that said, NRA / through it, all these things. You think that's okay?
But you're playing really kind of fast and loose with these like ideas that you found on some. I don't know where you got these from, but there's a lot more details that probably glean.
Right. It's always more details. It's never that you guys are abusive to conservative students.
When you look at the details, you find out.
It's never that you treat us like garbage. It's never that we're treated like we're disposable. I had a Silence GOP Lies sticker on on the fridge in my teacher's classroom. It's never that you cultivate an area of fear. It's never that you burn down the campuses because you want to hear someone like Ben Shapiro or Tommy Lahren. It's never that any of that happens. It's always that we're the lying victims. Aren't you all tired of that? Do you think do you honestly think that all young conservatives got together at some summit in Idaho and said, this is what we're going to do? No. There are so many children and so many young conservatives who are terrified of their school, who are terrified of their teachers. And the fact that Democrats laugh at it and dismiss it continuously is disgusting. And this is why I have such a problem with trying to
the example you just gave. So you feel stifled because people have anti-NRA.
I feel stifled. No. I don't feel stifled by opinions. I don't care. I have a problem when you have a middle school where you have signs
that say I'm against
where you have signs with NRA. Do you think it's appropriate that in a publicly funded school you have a Silence GOP Lies magnet on your refrigerator in your classroom? You think that's appropriate?
I mean, if you're a teacher, like the teacher did that?
Yeah, she had a Silence GOP Lies stick on her refrigerator.
So teachers can't have opinions?
No, you cannot cultivate a level of fear amongst young conservatives. You cannot bring politics into the classroom. There should be no politics in the classroom. You should go in and learn the facts.
When you learn history, that's political.
Yeah, and a lot of it is
sociology, economics, that's political.
Well, I never had a problem in psychology class. I never had that because my teacher was a professional who wasn't treating everyone. I had a fantastic psychology teacher in high school.
Stuff like that is political too.
He never brought anything up. He never demeaned anybody. He was a complete professional. He was a great guy. And then I had an AP US history teacher who said, let me ask you a question.
Demeaning is, I have this thing that says stop GOP lies. That's not demeaning you. That's just
wow. You really don't get the culture of fear that's cultivated, do you?
Well, why don't you influence your teacher?
I have a question for you.
What GOP lies are you talking about? That's what I would do. I would say, what you.
Right. So we can't just have a situation where students just go there and learn. We have to be combative. I have a question for you. My teacher said, I hope Texas falls off the map and Sarah Palin and Donald Trump go with it in the middle of a discussion. You think that's okay? You think it's okay to say, hope Texas falls off the map?
So
You think that?
got pissed off by this joke.
Wow, you really don't get it.
But like, just imagine, so people like Milo went to schools and deliberately
I'm not talking about Milo. I'm talking about publicly funded teachers. I'm talking about people who are supposed to educate children. They're children. They're children, but you can't stop shoving liberal ideology down people's throats for 5 seconds. You can't stop.
Get mad at your teacher for making a joke.
It's not, you don't get it. It's not a joke. It's not a joke.
You think that she actually meant, yes, I
think there's such a level. I think there is the level of pathological hatred for conservatives in schools that you do not understand. And you know what? Well, it's great for you that you grew up in a situation where your views were reflected in schools, or that your liberal views.
For a long time, they were not. I would not say.
You know what? How great for everybody that you all grew up in those situations. But do you ever think for maybe 1 second, maybe the conservative kid doesn't want to have the president trashed?
Let me just say something. I agree with you. I do think that it is definitely stifling, and people start to feel like they can't. They're afraid, like, because your teacher is an authority figure, and you don't always want to challenge them. I agree with that. That can be stifling, and that I think there should be a removal of these type of.
And this is my problem with Charlie Kirk. This is my issue with him.
Right.
And I have a serious problem with him. He is somebody who I think in the beginning was doing a very good job talking about things. He secured a lot of funding. In the last 3 years, he seems to have forgotten that his job is to protect conservative students. And he seems to be enjoying going to a lot of dinners and posting a lot of photos with the Trumps. This seems to be his main job now. Not the fact that these young conservative students are under siege. Not the fact that we're treated like garbage. And he does nothing. He does nothing again and again and again. And then the GOP rewards him. They reward him for doing this. They reward him for saying that he voted for Trump. It's ridiculous. He does nothing. He's lazy. He's a lazy coward who does nothing.
Yeah, he's definitely like. So I sort of met him like at the event I was at.
I saw your video.
So I asked him a question, and he lied.
What question did you ask? It was about something about maid. He said something about maids.
Yeah, he said like black people were competing with Mexicans for maid jobs, which I found to be kind of weird.
I showed that to my mother, and she's like, "He's an idiot."
He's not a very smart guy, but he's also definitely a coward. I agree with you because he's a coward. He's a coward for sure. He's Charlie Cook. He's not Charlie Kirk. I was walking out and I saw him, and I was like, "Hey, Charlie, like, you know, it was nice talking to you." And he wouldn't even look me in the eye. Like, he would not look me in the eye because he was scared. But I thought it was Antifa or something.
Question that he couldn't answer completely, or that you asked because you asked him something that wasn't a compliment.
Yeah.
Today I got blocked by him on Twitter. Do you want to know why I got blocked by him on Twitter? So I was on Twitter. I was just looking at it. And do you know about the baby Alfie thing?
I do. Yeah, I've been talking to some people.
Okay, so I'm extraordinarily pro-life, and I sent him a message, and I said to him, "How is it that he has 500,000 followers on Twitter, with 500,000 probably mostly young people, I would think, that you did not once mention this baby? He didn't. That you didn't bring this up, but that you spent 4 or 5 days talking about this Kanye thing." And I said to him,
well, he wants to meet Kanye, that's why.
Well, yeah, that's very clear. I said to him, he's a serious Christian, and he's an evangelical. And I said to him, how is it that as a serious Christian, you didn't talk about this baby Alfie thing? Like, I don't understand this thought process. I don't understand how you went on Fox and talked about Kanye West for 5 days, along with Candace, and neither one of them said anything. And I said this to him many times, and I will admit I sent him many messages because I'm very sick of it. And so he blocked me. Instead of talking to me, instead of having any conversation with me whatsoever, not only did he block me, first he blocked me from sending direct messages, then I posted about him blocking me, then he blocked me. So it's like it's a multi thing. He does it consistently. He consistently shuts you down if you're not either. If you notice that sometimes he can answer like questions like certain things, like he has things in his head. Unless you ask that, unless you compliment him, you have to be shut down.
Yeah, he has no interest in like having actual debates, doing any outreach. He just
so that annoyed me. Yeah, no, there's no debate. There's no debate. And so when I see something like that, where my leader, my guy who's supposed to be, blocks me on Twitter and Instagram, I'm blocked on Instagram from before. When I talked to him about Antifa, I got blocked. So how is it that this kid is securing all of these like endorsements from GOP people? He blocks people. He blocks young conservatives who are asking him questions.
Yeah. he's a big time coward. He's probably making a lot of money just going on the circuit,
This
going
is
to
like out of my.
different
He
places.
he blocked me on Twitter because I asked him why he didn't do something that he agrees with.
Yeah, he has no interest in like
He
doing
just let it go.
actually helping the conservative movement. He just
No,
wants
no. And I'm
to
glad someone else sees that because I think a lot of people just think I'm crazy, and I'm not. There's like a serious lack of effort. There's a serious lack of doing anything. Dude blocked me on Twitter. Did
I think
I
so. One
criticize?
thing you were saying before was like you're saying that conservatives don't run the country, but they run the government. I think kind of what you're getting at is that conservatives have institutional power, but they don't have like
Cultural power. Yeah.
they don't have power in the culture. They're not the most popular thing.
Also, we don't even really have a presence. I wouldn't even say that. I would say we don't have a presence as much.
Yeah, that's probably true. I think it's there in subtle ways that you
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
really think
yeah.
about. So I'll
Okay.
give you an example. I think Dirty Dancing. Dirty Dancing. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie,
Yeah.
but in that movie, one of the characters like she gets pregnant, and then she gets like a back alley abortion by some random guy, and it goes really wrong. She gets really sick. I think that that is sort of like making the pro life case
Yeah, I
in
can
pop
see that.
culture
Yeah.
without really overtly saying, "Hey, abortion is wrong." It's just
Well,
like,
there was also that show, I think, The Secret Life of the American Teenager, where she got pregnant and had the baby. And then I think someone else, I think another teenager gets pregnant, she has a baby. So that was like cultivating that. But I think when you're in a position where there could be work to make us matter more, and Kirk doesn't do it, I have a real problem with that.
yeah, he's a fraud. I think Candace Owens is another. I think there's a very high likelihood that she's just doing it for the money and the attention.
I don't know as much about Candace because she's newer.
So
I
one thing about her,
Yeah.
so I think it was like 2015 or 16.
Hmm.
She ran this site that was made
I've heard
exclusively
of this.
for.
I don't really understand what it is, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it was a site for doxing people. Like that's the best
Yeah,
way.
yeah. It was
So
like for cyberbullying or something.
yeah, so like if but what could happen is I could claim that you bullied me, and I could
Right.
post your address, post your Facebook, post all this stuff, and it would be publicly available with no review at all.
Yes, yes. It
Yeah,
was called like, yeah, I remember this. I watched the Dave Rubin interview with her talking about it.
yeah. Did you
And
see the debate she had with?
the Black Lives Matter debate.
No. She had a debate with Blair White, and it was a disaster. It was a cat fight.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I
Yeah,
saw the Dave Rubin one and all of that. I don't, my issue with Candace, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I don't know. She was not a conservative up until really the end of 2016, right? And you know what? I understand people becoming conservative. I don't have a problem with that. You switch sides, whatever. But I have a slight lack of trust in her because she's so new. I have a lack of trust in her positions. I have a lack of trust in what side, not what side she's on, but why she's doing it. And so I'm very hesitant of backing somebody like and conservatives are going all in with her. You see that.
Oh
They're
yeah.
going all they're going all in.
Here's the thing: like conservatives hate identity politics until it's in their favor. Like the minute there's like a black conservative, the
Yeah,
minute
that's true.
he's a conservative, they push these people into the spotlight as much as they
That's
can.
true. So I'm hesitant. I don't like going all in on anything. I think it's risky. But I don't like going all in on somebody who does not have a conservative track record, who doesn't have. I mean, I think she said something in an interview or wrote a column like, "Oh, those alt-right people are, effing nuts," and like that. This shows a disconnect from the Conservative Party because we don't say we're all effing nuts. We don't do that as much, and we don't block people on Twitter. So when you have this sort of situation, I don't trust her ability to handle being conservative in the long run. I don't trust that ability,
Yeah,
and I don't trust her. I don't trust that she knows what her positions are.
yeah, I think that she's mirroring other people's positions that she's been fed. You know, she's kind of consumed a lot of this ideology, and she's kind of sending
Yeah,
back.
that's possible. I don't even know what most of her positions are. I know she's a Trump supporter, but I don't even see. There's a level of like a lack of knowing about her that bothers me. We should know more. We should have a better understanding of her positions,
Yeah.
and we don't.
So one other thing I want to go back to real quick about Milo as a person, like I, I I'm curious about how you feel about some of the things that he did explicitly. I don't know if you heard. Did you ever hear of the person Adeline Kramer? You know who that is?
Yeah.
Probably don't. So she was a transgender student at a university he went to. It was the University of Milwaukee, and so Milo went there, and then he showed pictures to this audience of people of her pre-transition, and then he was like talking about, oh yeah, well she went in the women's bathroom, and blah blah blah. He basically outed her in front of all these people, and it caused her to have to leave.
Working for him?
I'm sorry, no, the
Did he do this as an employee? Or was this just a
so this
student?
was a student at Milwaukee University.
Yeah, so I have a problem with that.
Yeah, and so he outs this person, and it ruined her life, and she left the school because it
See,
was.
I have a problem with that. And this goes back to the level of sloppiness. And like I know that that seems like a weird word, but like understand what I'm saying. There's like a level of rude sloppiness that goes on. That makes it very difficult to be conservative. That makes it sometimes there's an issue there. So like that in this do you know about the diaper thing? Do you know about the stupid turning point diaper thing? Do you know about this?
I have no idea. I don't even.
A group of these people went of Turning Point students went and wore diapers and said like "wah wah" to conservatives. Yeah, so it's so embarrassing. It's just so embarrassing. So bad. And there were photos, and the chapter president quit. It was a whole thing.
That's so dumb.
And when you have something like that, or what like Milo did, it's sloppy and it's rude and it's unnecessary.
Yeah, I think so this was stuff like that was the reason why what happened in Berkeley happened. Now, I don't think that justifies it. I don't think that justifies. And the other thing too is you said it was students, so a lot of
Yeah.
them were not students. Okay, I'm actually from the Bay Area, and I'll tell you right now, most of the Black Bloc and Antifa people, they're actually from the richer parts of like the. So if you go a little bit more east, there's these very kind of rich enclaves. So
Mm-hmm.
these rich people's kids come out, they get on their hoods, and they go into Berkeley and start destroying stuff. So a lot of
Okay.
those people
I
were
didn't know that. That's
actually,
interesting. I didn't know that.
but I think what happened was not that level of violence is not justified. But he did come to Berkeley, and he was saying, "I'm going to start outing people."
Okay, see, I didn't know that, and that's interesting to me. I didn't
Yeah,
know that. Well, I
again,
didn't know either of those things, and that's a problem I have now with how that conservative thing, how that was spun then a little bit,
oh
because I mean, like you can agree. Do you know who Ben Shapiro is?
yeah, uh-huh.
Like you can agree that rioting against Ben Shapiro is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's ridiculous. He's just a
Okay.
conservative. He has some very kind of, I think he said some things about Palestinians that are very very like crazy. He said some
But,
things.
he is Jewish, so at least he has a relevancy in the topic.
Well, yeah, he can
His
say
wife
whatever he
is from
wants,
Israel.
but he's
He
not
has a
troll. He's a serious thinker, and he's a serious debater.
I don't understand rioting against Ben Shapiro or all these people. But when you had like, see, I didn't know those things about Milo, and I don't know if necessarily all of them are true. But when you have a situation then where that was sort of defended,
Yeah,
that's a little odd. And I wish again that our conservative leadership had done a better job explaining that.
yeah. I think there was and so this is the problem with Milo and people like him. He's trying to create these moments where there's a lot of tension and animosity and hatred, but people feed off of that, but they feed off of it in a bad way, you know. Instead of, I think, like having a dialogue like you and I are having is more constructive than creating outrage factories where people kind of get mad at each other, but it's like the worst version of the other person, you
Yeah,
know.
but I think that also goes on both sides. I think when you have
It goes on the left.
like Linda Sarsour, do you know who that is?
Yeah, I know who she is.
Oh, I have a problem with her speaking at colleges. I think somebody who is very pro Hamas, who has said that, somebody who does that. Now, would I riot? No, that's not in me to do. But I can understand objecting to this. I can understand turning your back from it. I can understand that. So when I don't see that covered as much by TV, like when I think conservatives turn their back toward a couple of things, that bothers me. It also bothers me that there is not outright condemning of her on the liberal side. Now there
Like,
should be some on the right side, but she said things about death to Jews. I mean, there's serious
I don't
problems.
know about that, but I do know that she said some bad things about Ayan Hirsi Ali. She said some weird things about yeah, like Jewish groups. I think she was at one talk and she said just he like conflated like the media with like the Jewish media with Israel and these other kind of weird statements. She says a lot of bad things, and I think that she's kind of a part of this wave of anti-Semitism in
Yeah,
the.
there's a serious wave of anti-Semitism, and I really don't like. I know this sounds stupid, but I really don't like anti-Semitism. I think it's ridiculous and
Well, I don't
stupid.
think anyone should. I think it's
No,
horrible
yeah,
to be
I
against it.
think it's ridiculous, and I don't understand how. Like, I don't understand how, with what happened with the Holocaust, with knowing what can happen, how bad it can happen, why there's not such an effort to stamp that out on both sides. Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand how Louis Farrakhan is embraced by members of Congress.
Yeah.
I mean, there are videos of this man saying the Jews have stolen, they take things back from the Jews. I
Yeah.
don't get how Maxine Waters is hugging him. I don't understand. You cannot make me understand why she is hugging somebody who is such an anti-Semite.
Yeah, I don't think it's acceptable. I don't think that they should associate with him. I
Yeah.
think there's definitely some like machine politics style stuff that is the reason why he's kind of relevant. And I'm black and I kind of have listened to him at times and I can understand like from the African American perspective like what the appeal is. Like he says things that for us kind of even if they're wrong, they hit a nerve that feels true. And so I think that there's a lot of people that kind of are into that. I think he's a horrible anti-Semitic person. I think he's deplorable. I don't think that he should be associated with anyone. But I understand why people find that connection with him. But I wish it weren't there. I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's definitely a problem. It's a problem on the left. It was something that blew up in I think it was the Women's March movement.
Yeah.
One of the.
I was shocked at that.
Yeah,
I wasn't shocked.
She wasn't gonna stop paying. It was terrible.
I was surprised about that, and I was surprised that again that it was so sloppy, that you have such an overtness of it.
Yeah.
You have. I mean, didn't she recently, one of not Linda Sarsour, the other girl, say she condemned Starbucks bringing in a Jewish company? She's the other one said that she condemned Starbucks bringing in a Jewish company to help with their anti-bias training. I mean, how much more overt do you have to be than to say that?
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but like that is not acceptable to me, and that's become a problem. Like, there's definitely been this like left anti-Semitic or like I think it's conflating like the Israeli politics.
Yeah, the left is like flirting with it in a really odd way.
Yeah, there was like a gay pride rally where a bunch of people had like the Israeli flag, things like that, and people were like, no, we don't like this. We don't find it acceptable. We think it's.
I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how people become very anti-Semitic. It's very odd to me. I don't understand this.
Well, there's a lot of lies. Number one, so they're told that Jews run the banks, Jews run the media.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Jews are scheming to hurt white people. That's what it is.
And that's something that both sides have to condemn. So I mean, show shopping. I mean, what other example do we need in history? Like, what has to be bigger than what happens when you don't condemn it? It's that was a different level of genocide than we've ever seen before. How much bigger of a level do you need? And to have a serious flirtation with it amongst certain leaders is very troubling to me.
The alt-right, right? A lot of them, like, that's the kind of politics they play in, is they talk about Holocaust denial. They push.
Yeah, and I don't. That's ridiculous that there's Holocaust denial. That was a problem a little bit during the beginning of this. Not the beginning, when the World War II was happening. There was some of that going on in America, saying it's not happening. It's not happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in World War II, we kind of just totally didn't want to do anything until we got attacked.
Yeah. We had a serious life. I mean, Stalin did a lot more than we did in the beginning of World War II.
No, the Russians
fighting.
Won the war in Europe, for sure. They won the war in Europe, and
they were the ones that liberated those camps. What they saw was just, and then just sort of, I feel like a little bit that the horrors of what happened are being lost a little bit. I feel like we need.
People are like, my grandfather built machines out here on the West Coast, in the war effort. He's gone. Like, there's so many people that are gone that fought in the war.
My grandfather fought for America in World War II, and he was there from the very beginning, from when we were in and he was in Italy and all those places. And my mom knows about those things, but I think there needs to be a serious amount of education of young people about what has happened. Like I've heard language like, "Why do we have to talk about 9/11 anymore?" recently, and to me, that's horrifying.
That?
What?
What's the context of that?
I was just talking to some people in my class, and somebody said to me, "Well, why do we need to talk about 9/11 anymore?" And then I read something in a New Yorker or something that was like, "You have to do this 9/11 memorial again." How? Like, what is wrong with people?
We have to take the right sort of understanding from 9/11, why it happened, what our response was, what our response should have been.
Yeah, and our response was a mess. Our response was a disaster. It was a disaster. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't understand how
we should never lose. Sure.
I don't understand how we got from trade centers and the Pentagon, all of that, to invading Iraq. I don't get how where that, like, how did we go from there to invading Iraq?
Well, there was a justification, and then they kind of mangled the.
I think there was a little bit of lying that was going on with that. I think that there was some issues with going into Iraq.
Well,
and it's an issue. Yeah, and it's an issue we're still dealing with, and it's. Now, if you had said they went into Pakistan, I could understand that a little more. If some of those people were from Pakistan, I could understand dealing with that issue. I don't understand invading Iraq. I don't get it. I feel like sometimes Rand Paul is the only person who has a significant grip of foreign policy.
It was probably the worst. It was the worst thing done. I mean, in like the last 70 years, it's the worst.
It was a disaster. And like with this Pompeo thing, like Rand Paul was withholding his vote till Pompeo said it. And I think that was, now look, I would have voted to confirm Pompeo because he's already met with Kim Jong-un. And you can't manufacture that again. You can't create a different situation with somebody who's doing that. There was so much work. But of all of it, I can understand a little bit how that could hang Rand Paul up. How he could say, you have to understand this was a problem and this was a mistake.
Yeah, he doesn't think that. And I think that's another thing I don't really like about Trump. He's bringing in all these Iraq era people who did all these bad things. I forget, there was this one person, she's going to be the head of the CIA now. She did a bunch of torture.
Oh, see, I disagree with that. I disagree. Claire McCaskill. Gina Haskell? Is it Gina Haskell? Okay. See, I also disagree with that. I think there's a difference between the people who were involved in the Iraq War and the people who made executive decisions in the Iraq War. Now, if he brought in Dick Cheney or Karl Rove or some of these people, or the general.
John Bolton? John Bolton's another guy, another neocon.
Again, though, with John Bolton, I think there's been such a lack of having somebody there who is very aware of wars that need to happen and things, that it's a correction. When, like, if he had brought in, what is that general that was there during that? No, he was secretary. What? Colin Powell. I would have been unhappy about that. I would have said,
over. He like completely destroyed his own.
I don't understand how that's possible, but I do think you need a level of war hawkishness. And I think that anyone who does whatever is necessary in the CIA to keep Americans safe is necessary.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit. So one of the things I saw you talking about was like you wish Charlie went after David Hogg some more.
And
that has to do with you probably disagree with his gun control arguments.
It's not even just that. I just don't like him.
Yeah, I think a lot of conservatives don't like him. I think a lot of you guys.
Let me tell you something interesting about that.
Very effective. Okay? They've changed the tide on the way people feel about gun control legislation. I think that's why a lot of conservatives don't like him, actually.
Let me tell you something very interesting about why I'm so upset with Charlie Kirk about that. When this David Hogg thing was going on, I have a very big debate career. I debated in Massachusetts. I have a lot of connections within the debate community. When this is happening, David Hogg's in Florida, and he was on the debate team. And I contacted some people I knew in Florida in the debate team, people who had debated him, right? And I compiled a list of people Charlie could talk to if Kyle was going to debate with Charlie, with Hogg, right? I compiled this, and I said to him, there are people who want to coach Kyle or all of these things. You should really make this debate happen. And he said, thank you for the information, and did nothing with it. So again, there is so do you see my problem with that? With the complete lack of using of things that are given to him repeatedly.
Yeah, he has no interest in like creating this kind of like something helpful. He doesn't want to do.
I about that. I mean, I was like, well, I sent I sent him another email. I was like, please use it and everything. But I was thinking to myself, obviously, young conservatives want there to be a debate. Obviously, I mean, I worked with somebody else to get the information. Obviously, there's an effort to do that. Why did you not push this harder? Why did you not push this to the breaking point? And why didn't you, if David Hogg wouldn't do it, why didn't you like sort of do like a social media campaign to get one of their side to do it? Where where was the leadership there? Like where was the fortitude? So that bothers me very much that he didn't do that.
Yeah. So do you actually disagree with a lot of the March for Our Life policies? Like, how do you feel about those?
Yeah, I do. I disagree
Like,
with
okay,
most
so
of them.
let me ask you a couple specifically. So, are you against universal background checks? Would you be against that?
Mm, I would, if it's the type of background check that's happening now and doesn't have some sort of interview where you have to do an interview with somebody. I would not be against that.
Yeah, because the problem now is there's the gun show loophole, right?
Yeah,
That's the
the
problem. Is
gun
like,
show loophole, though. I mean, I get that point of view, but most of these guns that are sold there are, first of all, sold to people who have to present ID to get them, who have to do all those things. And a lot of these guns are vintage guns. And I think that there's a lot of this like, oh, well, there's this gun show loophole and everything. I don't think that that's as prevalent as people think. And I think that it's a disservice to use that as the thing to go after. I think that again, it's sloppy.
yeah, well, I think it's a problem. There's a lot of sales that fall out of the cracks, and I know that I believe the Columbine shooting, they purchased their guns through the gun show loophole, so they were untraced basically.
I
So
think
I think that's a problem and that should be resolved with universal background checks.
yeah, I could see the argument for that. Yeah.
So would you support the CDC being able to run studies on gun violence? Right now, they're restricted by
I
Congress.
don't know enough about that. I don't know why they're restricted. I don't know the background to that to have an answer for it.
I mean, look, most of these are restrictions because of gun lobby. Like that's just the
Well,
truth.
I don't know enough. I don't know about that. I don't know if there's reasons for it, and I don't know if the gun lobby has a true reason for pushing that, if that is why. So I can't answer that.
So another one is currently the ATF. They are banned from digitizing their gun sales records. They have to have them in like physical paper. They cannot digitize them like as a decree by Congress. Like, do you think they should be able to digitize their gun sale records?
I mean, I think most things are digitized, but then again, I'm not in the realm of people who are in charge of making sure that our Second Amendment is not impeded on. So I don't know if that has a direct correlation to it. So, in my personal opinion, I would say I think you should digitize everything. But then again, I don't know what that could lead to. So I don't really have an answer for that.
So you're for it being inefficient as long as it helps people like not have their Second Amendment.
When you have a situation where there's a serious level of a serious effort to destroy it, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, it wouldn't though. It's just sales records.
Yeah, but and I understand that. I think as a lot of NRA members, and I am an NRA member, I have an issue with. I have a fear of any precedent being set, of any steps being set to try to take down the Second Amendment, because that is what most Democrats want. You want restrictions, and it's not going to happen. So it's not going to happen on the NRA's watch. It's not going to happen on conservatives' watch. So anything that liberals push, I'm inherently skeptical of,
Okay.
and I would probably oppose unless I had all the data on it.
Okay. So how about high capacity magazines and bump stocks? Like, do you think that those should be banned?
I don't know enough about. I would say that bump stocks. First of all, I've heard a lot of things that you can just make a bump stock at home.
There are definitely problems. And I think actually this was something that Marco Rubio talked about in that town hall that was pretty
Yeah.
legitimate, which is like when we legislate what is a assault weapon or when we
Yeah.
legislate out what is a bump stock, it's easy for them to sort of like
High capacity magazines, I know a lot of times can be used for hunting, so I would allow that. Didn't Trump ban bump stocks? If he did, then I would think that there was and that he knows enough about that, and that the NRA knows enough about that to know that that is not going to be detrimental to the health of the Second Amendment.
yeah, let me just read. I have like, and so one thing I wanted to just to state is like most of these are extremely popular, and so let me just read some numbers from a political poll. and just like the range of support for these different types of legislation amongst the American people. So for preventing sales of firearms from people that have dangerous mental disorders, 89% approve of that. Requiring background checks on all gun sales, 88%. Expanding screenings of treatment for the mentally ill, 87%. Preventing sales of firearms to people who have been convicted of violent misdemeanors, 84%. Making private gun sales and sales at gun shows subject to background checks, 82%. Raising the minimum age to buy a gun to 21, 82%. So a lot of these have very high.
And the mental health stuff, I would agree with you. I think I think we have I think we're behind in a lot of essences in the mental health field here. I think that we don't have screening. But here's my issue. If you add on mental health screenings to things, when a Democrat is in office, which one day might happen, you're going to use that to take it away. And everyone thinks we don't know that. But all of a sudden it's going to be, well, why do you want a gun? Who did you vote for? Do you believe in God? These are going to be all these things that are asked, and then it's going to be impeded upon. So I can't be for that. I am for mental health. I am for more funding for mental health. I would do all of those things. But again, Democrats are very sneaky people when they're in power in regards to the Second Amendment.
One thing I would say, do you think that there is a correlation in this country between people that have extreme right-wing views and people that do mass shootings?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There is no. You know what's interesting? When Steve Scalise was shot and everything, that guy was a Bernie Sanders supporter. That was swept under the rug. My thing is, routinely attacked for this, and yet yet the NRA members are majority probably conservative, and there's never been an NRA shooter.
Wait, so let's take some of the last couple of shootings. So let's take the one in Florida. Like, was that guy a left winger or was he a right winger?
That guy was nuts. And for anyone to say that guy had a political, so now it's Trump's fault.
Bro, so now, he swastika on the bullets. Okay, I don't think he was a left winger.
Oh, okay. So what you're insinuating here is that we're all racists. That the racism comes from the Republican Party.
What I'm saying is that I don't think that you are anything like him. But what I'm saying is that there is a correlation between people that do mass shootings.
No, there's a correlation between people who have a penchant for Nazism, for totalitarianism and control, and people who go into a room and shoot people. And honestly, Democrats seems to have a lot bigger penchant for those things than conservatives.
I don't want Democrats using people's views to stop them from getting guns. So what if we see someone who's very extreme right-wing, but they're a Trump supporter, and then they get flagged and they're like, well, this person's extreme right-wing. We need to stop them from getting a gun. I think and that is why no conservative will ever trust anyone on your side, because you will eventually see there is a level of fear in the conservative movement. So there's someone who's a Trump supporter, but they're very extreme. They're very violent. They have violent rhetoric.
Why does being a Trump supporter matter here? Why is it not just violent rhetoric?
Someone who's like a Hillary supporter, but they're very far left and they're like eco-terrorists or something. These things happen. It's
not the fact that both sides have radical nutbags. It's the fact that the people the side they're on. The Democratic Party right now is going through all of this.
What I'm saying is we can't say, oh, like someone on the right is going to say, oh, they're taking his gun because he supports Trump. No, we're taking their gun because they are extremist. So don't conflate
we don't trust you
with being far right. But if we have both, don't try to stop them from having their gun taken away because they are a Trump supporter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, except most people in your party hate us. You do. You hate Trump supporters. Most leadership. You have a congressperson going around saying impeach 45. You have a situation in which hold on, Maxine Waters, in which the Democratic Party hates us. And you hate us, and the Democratic Party hates us on a pathological level. So anything you do will be regarded as an act of aggression.
Are you telling me not to stereotype people on the right?
I'm stating a fact that there's a pathological level of hatred like nothing I've ever seen before.
But people say these things about conservatives. It's bad, but you're stating a fact. But I would be saying,
well, I'm living it. I'm living the pathological level of hatred that is originating from the left. I don't even understand how people on the left are functioning anymore when you're in this level of hatred.
Well, I mean, the good thing is we're winning now, so that makes it a little bit better. Like we won a Senate seat in Alabama. Like, how did that happen?
But would you win it straight out? Do you think you'll win re-election? You won't win re-election.
I have no idea. But what I know is that you guys put up someone who was so disgusting.
Hey, I would have had that guy pull out. I would never have picked that guy. That was ridiculous.
I know. Alabama agreed.
That was a harsh.
You speaking of Pennsylvania. So a guy just won in Pennsylvania where
yeah, he ran as a Republican, so let's not get too happy about that. Yes, he did. He ran as a Republican. He was pro-Second Amendment. He was anti-Nancy Pelosi. He was pro-lower taxes. He ran as a non-Kennedy Republican.
He was against the taxes. No, that is not true.
No, but he said he would not repeal them. He said he would not repeal them.
I think he would not repeal the part that was for.
You ran a guy as a neocon. You didn't run. You're not winning with alt-left people.
He was for Medicare for all. What are you talking about?
Side ran a guy. Oh, and you know what? Most neocons are going down that path. Your side ran a moderate Republican. You can dress it up any way you want. Your side ran a moderate Republican, and you won. Your side ran a moderate Republican. The level of hatred and the
you just tried to
coming to the right. I don't understand how anyone on your side is funky.
Like that's what you just did. You're trying to devalue.
No, I'm not downing it. You guys won fair and square. Good job. But you didn't run a Democrat. We both know you didn't run a Democrat. You ran a moderate Republican. You ran a moderate Republican. You ran a moderate Republican who rebelled against Nancy Pelosi.
No.
You ran a moderate Republican.
Here's a question for you. Did he say that he was supporting Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House? Yes or no? Did he say that
he said no?
Yes. He said yes. Right before the election, he said yes. He did. And he got.
And he said he didn't support anything Nancy Pelosi was saying. You ran a moderate Republican
another
in order to show us up. It's I have this theory. That there's this guy at the Democratic National Convention called. Let me tell you this thing. I have a theory. There's a guy at the Democratic National Committee called Jerry, and Jerry sits around and he figures out how to, and he sits there and he begs the left people to not be crazy. And he begs them to stop talking about ridiculous gender politics. And then I think Jerry got in control there. And he said, we're going to run a moderate Republican. A moderate Democrat. That's what happened. You didn't win with a Maxine Waters. You did not win with the standard that is your party. You did not win with the standard that is your party. We won with the standard that is our party with Trump.
He ran for all these things. None of these are Republican talking.
You ran a moderate Democrat. You did not run an extremist. You ran a moderate Democrat.
I'm sorry, but he was for Nancy Pelosi.
Moderate Democrat who was pro-Second Amendment. You did not run.
He was like, I don't want to ban all guns, but I do.
You ran a moderate Democrat.
He was not moderate.
You did not. Look, if you had won with someone like Elizabeth Warren, I'd say hats off to you guys. Good job. But you didn't. You didn't.
But he's not really moderate.
You ran a moderate Democrat. It's okay. It's good for you that you got that.
Pro-unions is moderate? Tell me that. Is pro-union moderate? He was pro.
Some neocons are pro-union. We have a serious problem with that. With some neocons.
Tax cuts. He was against them. He said
he said he wouldn't reverse them. You ran a moderate.
They were rich.
You ran a moderate Democrat. No, you ran a moderate Democrat. Look, if you had won with someone like Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren, I'd tip my hat to you. But you didn't. You didn't because that model doesn't work in states that are New York, California, and Massachusetts. You ran a moderate Democrat. It's okay that you had to do that.
You're misunderstanding. It's not Nancy Pelosi, but it's someone who has a different type.
Okay. It's okay that you had to run someone like that to identify with large amounts of people. It's okay. But you ran a moderate Democrat. You didn't run Elizabeth Warren.
There's nothing moderate about being against tax cuts.
A moderate Democrat who is a sheep, who is a wolf in sheep's clothing. To those people. Yes, you did. You ran a moderate Democrat.
I want to ask you this. So you said that you were really, really pro-life.
Yeah.
So are you someone that would want abortion to be banned in the United States?
No, I'm somebody who would like states to make those individual decisions.
So if a state banned abortion...
Yeah, that's fine. It's that state's choice. If that state votes on something or whatever their system is, that's their choice. Okay, I have no problem with that.
I think that... So what would happen if, let's say, Texas, they ban abortion, and then a woman gets a back alley abortion? What should happen to the woman?
To the woman, I think the woman should go through counseling, and there should be a level of compassion. And I also think that this tactic that everyone uses of saying, well, what happens if she, does this or all this happens? How are we the bad people for trying to preserve babies' lives? How are we the bad people? It's like being anti-Israel. Well, how are we the bad people for not wanting dead babies? I don't understand this thought process. If someone has to go through that, then there should be serious amounts of counseling. And also, if there is something, if there like there were some babies who were born without brains, if there are serious medical issues like that are proven by the doctor, I think that should happen in a hospital. Those things that happen. But we are not the party of evil because we want less dead babies. It doesn't work. Your side wants more dead babies. We want less dead babies.
It's about choice for the woman. Like,
no, but that child is a human being. That child is a human being. That child is a human being.
But what you're doing is you're creating an economic burden on poorer women, and that economic burden is not going to be
child is a human being.
And I'm telling you right now, a woman in Texas who is poor, who has a child, they're not going to get helped by the government. They're going to be left to dry.
Somebody should just be able to murder somebody else because it'll improve their economic standing? No.
I don't think abortion's murder.
Well, that's a different position than I have. But killing babies is not okay. It's not okay.
But abortion currently is not murder.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's your opinion, but you can't do that.
But I think in terms of the policy, I mean, I would be more on your side, but I think that conservatives are more pro-birth than they are pro-life. They don't care about the person once they're born.
That's not true. There are large amounts of conservatives and people in religious communities who adopt babies from crisis pregnancy centers. I met a girl today who was adopted from a crisis pregnancy center as a baby. That is ridiculous. You are not in the conservative community.
Out here, I'll tell you what I see. I see people that put up signs like giant billboards saying, "Hey, choose life," and that's their pro-life movement in my community. Like, they're not out there helping women who are poor, who've gotten pregnant. They're just kind of shaming them.
We set up crisis pregnancy centers everywhere. Religious organizations go in and try to counsel. There is a huge amount of that. It comes down to a very simple thing here, and it's something that there can really be no bridge on, because our side wants no dead babies, and Democrats think it's an acceptable thing to happen.
It's very
no, it's very black and white. It's very black and white. Dead babies or no dead babies.
Very emotional argument, like, oh, it's dead.
No, not. I'm saying I don't. Here, how about this? I don't want to be murdered going outside, and I don't want a baby murdered when the baby's inside. That's what the argument is.
Like
that's what the argument is.
And abortion happening, these are two different things.
No, they're not. They're not. And you know what? I don't understand how people who are preserving life are looked at as the bad people. We are trying to create a situation where there are less dead babies. We're not on the wrong side of this.
Would you be of universal childcare for all women?
I think that I would be. I know, because that's a step towards socialism, and it's a risky area, and it's something Democrats will take advantage of. I would be in favor of cultivating a situation of maybe giving companies tax breaks if they have childcare facilities, of cultivating that sort of thing. I want there to be an ability for people to bring babies to work. I want all sorts of things. But I don't want government-funded mass daycare.
So this is my problem, too. So, like, there's a lot of places, like, I'm very familiar with, like, what they do in Portugal. Mm-hmm. Portugal is a place, they're like 90% Catholic, and but they have legal abortion. It is legal. But I believe that their level of abortion is like 5 per 100,000, ours is like 250 per 100,000. So there's obviously a cultural difference. That's the main thing. They culturally are in favor of life, even though they have a legal way for people to get abortion. But the difference between countries like that, and Ireland is another one. They have universal pre-K, and they have.
Ireland's also
they also have universal healthcare. So like these women get better healthcare, and it's cheaper. So all of these things.
Let's talk about universal healthcare.
So hold on, but my point is that what you're doing is you're going to be forcing women to carry an economic burden of these children, and it's going to hurt the woman and the child. That's the problem I have with the pro-life movement.
There's no problem with standing for life. There's never a problem with that.
Well, I'm just like, I'm not going to be in favor of a policy that's going to hurt poor women. And that's what you're in favor of right now, in my opinion.
I'm not in favor of that. That's a ludicrous statement, and it's very bigoted. I'm not in favor of that. I'm not in favor of that.
Policy would do. If you banned abortion and you didn't have services to help poor women, it would.
I'm not in favor of that. I'm not in favor of that. I'm in favor of making sure that we have babies that live. That's a ridiculous statement to say. It's ridiculous to say that.
You said that you're not in favor of like having the government like help them, take care of the child on a certain level. You know, like
Yes, because that's socialism.
I don't think that's socialism. I think that that's like a safety net. I think that's the correct term for it. I think that in socialism, where the government runs everything, is different. But I do think that that is a good policy to have, especially if you're pro-life, because I think it makes sense to help the women if they're going to be having these children not be also economically burdened by having them, because that's where the abortion comes in. A woman
Okay.
makes a decision and says, I cannot afford this child, and it's going to hurt me and the child if I have the child. But
Okay.
in these places, again, like Portugal and Ireland, they have this safety net around women and a different culture, which helps to allow people to like have the children and not be burdened.
Okay.
So I would be more open to your argument if you were in favor of these things that would help women
Yeah.
out of poverty.
Can we get towards wrapping this up because we've been on for a while?
Sure. Yeah. I guess, so did you want to talk about healthcare?
No, it's okay. We can skip that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess that's about it. I think the only thing was I didn't feel like you totally answered the right question. I don't know what you think they are, but at least my perception is like it's a bunch of like kind of closet Nazis like Richard Spencer. I think that's like the direction you do not want the conservative movement to go in, because that is going to be really a problem.
Okay.
So yeah, I was just curious what your opinion about them is.
I think I don't know enough about them to say those things.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So like you don't know anything about like Richard Spencer?
I don't even know who that is.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I think that's about it. I'll let you have any closing statement if whatever you want to say you can.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, I just had a discussion with Maggie Rose. Check out her channel, and I'll probably be doing some other interviews soon. So,
All right. Thank you. Bye.
here.